Hey everybody, it's Kneecap here, and in this video, we're going to be talking about delves in Midnight, specifically on the beta, of course. We're going to be previewing them a little bit, and we're also going to be giving feedback on the delves because it is beta after all. So as you can see here on this list, there's a good amount of delves. Instead of doing them all in one video, because if you do subscribe to the channel, you know that I can be a bit long-winded at times, and so I'm not going to try to make a video with every single delve in it. I think what I'm going to do for this is I'm going to break them up into like 3, 3, and 4, because you don't test the secret boss or whatever, at least not yet. If that changes, I'll test that and maybe do its own video, but right now I'm probably doing like 3, 3, and 4. And yeah, so the 3 we're going to be specifically talking about, let's get my notes up as well. Let's pop up the notes here, are going to be Darkway, Sunkiller Sanctum, and Gulf of Memory. And we're going to start at the bottom and work up. However, Shadowguard Point, I wasn't able to test it because when I'm trying to zone into it, maybe I just need a faster computer, but it's like in an area I'm not supposed to be at yet, and it kicks me out before I can quite enter the delve. Like I start to enter the delve, my character enters the delve, and then it teleports me back to Stormwind. So maybe that one will become testable, but right now it's not. So we're going to go through each one. Well, each of these 3, Darkway, Sanctum, and Gulf. And I'm going to kind of give my rundown and my thoughts on the delve. And then I'm also going to, talk about some broader things as well. In fact, let's go ahead and teleport to the Archway, and let's talk about some broader things first of what I'm noticing so far in the delves. And this is mostly feedback, but it's also, impressions as well. So teleport into Darkway. And I just want to enter before I start talking too much here so we can go here. We'll go into a 10, doesn't matter. We're not going to really fully run it or anything like that. Just wanted you guys to be able to see what they look like as well, right? So this one immediately, before we talk about the wild things, if you just played Legion Remix, you're going to know that the Darkway looks like the Archway, right? Looks very similar. It looks like Withered Training from Legion as well, that same layout. And we'll talk about that when we start. A couple things I want to say off the top, though, that are a little bit more broad, and maybe it'll change because there's probably like, now even though I'm reviewing like 3 here, I've done most of the delves because I did them while I was leveling up on the other server, but there are probably, I'd have to look, but there's probably like 2 or 3 that I haven't done, and maybe the things that I'm about to say that are lacking are all in those delves, or maybe it's just at a part of the beta where certain things aren't put into the delves yet, right? This is early. But there's 2 things that I had kind of noted that were a little bit lacking in my opinion. So the first thing is puzzles. So I know on some of the delves I did when I was leveling up, and before I even get any further, there's also different stories, right? So one story might not have the same layout as the other, therefore it might not have the puzzle. It might not have the other thing we're going to talk about, which is environmental damage. And so that very well could be the case too. I haven't tested every single story on every single delve. At some point I probably will, but I haven't done that yet. From the leveling and from testing it at max level, I did notice that there were kind of a less puzzles. I don't know if that's a move they're trying to make, because I know what they did in War Within was some of the harder puzzles, they just made them super easy to solve, and I get it. They don't want to make people feel like they have to solve a puzzle that they aren't good at, right? But I think having them in there was so cool, and it really fit the idea of a delve, this underground thing that's like hidden. And especially with Bran, it's a little bit different, I guess, with a different person, but Bran would solve puzzles, right? That makes sense. And so I hope that they don't completely go away from the puzzles. In fact, maybe just change what the puzzles reward. I don't know. I think already just offering you like more damage or whatever, in many cases, is already not something that people are missing out on. They're not missing out on rewards, so they have to do it without the puzzle. Just tune it without the puzzle, right? And those of us who want to do the puzzles, perhaps get a little easier time, but make it tuned to where you don't need to do the puzzle, but you can. And I would love to have puzzles back in, and I honestly, I would love to have them be a little bit difficult, and have them just for people who like puzzles, or someone who wants to challenge, someone who doesn't like puzzles but wants to challenge themselves. I would love to see that personally. The puzzles have been a little lacking, in my opinion. The other thing that's a little bit lacking is the environmental damage. So in the War Within, I thought a very good percentage of the delves had environmental damage, meaning you might have an extra action button that like throws dynamite or something, right? And that's just very straightforward. That's like an ability. But there are also ones where you could actually literally use the environment. You could use an obvious one that I think everybody knows is like the mushrooms, right? Or the spores. You stand on the spore, gets a green circle around it, you run out, your enemies run through it, they get blown up by the spore. Great environmental damage. And there's a lot of different versions of this in the War Within. Not a lot of environmental damage so far. So I really hope they're not going away from that. It was probably my son's favorite part of delves was using the environmental damage, and it was definitely one of my favorite parts as well. So I really hope they're not going away from the environmental damage, and I hope that they change their course on puzzles, because I do think because they made the puzzles so trivial in the War Within that they're like, we can just get rid of them. But I really wish that they could find a way for the people who like puzzles to be able to do them. I understand that not everybody likes them, but again, just have them be a reward and not a penalty if you don't get it wrong, if you don't get it right or something, right? Or maybe after you try 5 times or 10 times and fail, maybe you just get a worse reward or something, right? I don't know. like just something. Maybe think about that a little bit. So let's go ahead and talk about the Darkway. I told you I was long-winded at the start of the video. Not my fault. So again, Darkway, very similar to Archway. The layout is almost exactly the same. If you've ever done Archway or whatever, you can tell right now. Like we can go into the bigger room, I guess. Let me just clear one pole. It shouldn't take too long. I did do this on a 10 for some reason, but it shouldn't take too long to clear one pole here, hopefully. So we'll go ahead and do one little pole here. We have the new buddy here as a tank spec, just to make this easy. And hopefully we can get into this room and show you around a little bit more. But if you've ever seen Archway, you know what this looks like. So there we go, big open thing with a bunch of side rooms and side halls, and then ultimately usually collapsing back on the same area. Again, very similar to Archway there. So this is what it looks like, whatever. So my notes on this one is, first of all, for nostalgia reasons, if you like Archway, if you like Withered Training, you're going to immediately be like, oh, this is cool. And you're going to be kind of going through a place that looks familiar to you. I thought that was really neat. I don't know if that will get boring after a while because it's somewhere we've been before, but I liked it a lot. It really had a nice delve feel because of that. A lot of it's nostalgia. Also, for this particular story, there's an ogre boss, and I thought he was really fun. That's just something I wanted to throw in there. I know there's different stories, different bosses, but for this particular one, I thought the ogre boss was just really good, like a really good boss. And if you played delves a lot in the War Within, you know that there's some bosses who are really good, and there's some bosses who aren't. And I would say this one was probably one of the better ones. So I wrote that down as well. Now, there are these ley line things, right? And when you get close to them, they'll try to zap you, right? This is an example of environmental damage, but not environmental damage that helps you. It only hurts you. So I did try to kite enemies through these ley line things over here on the side, and it did not do any damage to them. So it's just kind of an annoying thing, aerial denial. It's really annoying for melee. Like, that would be the one knock on this, is that there's this thing that I have to run through as melee, and sometimes even like pull something in, and then maybe my buddy gets stuck in there fighting and I have to like taunt it out. Like, it can be a little annoying. So if you're gonna have something like that, it would really be cool if you could also then use it to hurt the enemies. Maybe that's what it's intended to be. But other than that, this place was great. It felt like a delve. You're underground. I like when the delves are underground personally. It felt like a delve. It had a lot of nostalgia, and I just had done Legion Remix, right? I've done a lot of Archways recently, believe it or not, in the past month. And, it just had this cool little feel to it. Some of the mobs are similar to Archway mobs. And then, of course, you have some, like, elven mobs as well in here. It's very Legion. Very Legion feeling. It was really, really cool. So I really, really liked the Darkway in general. So I thought that was really, really cool. Next up, we will be talking about the Sunkiller Sanctum before going to the Gulf of Memory. We'll probably have to edit the Gulf of Memory because I don't think my Hearthstone's going to be ready when we go to that one. All right, here we are in the Sunkiller Sanctum. So this was actually my favorite of the 3 that we're going to be talking about today. This one was really cool. So it had a very similar feel to like some of the voidy ones in the War Within. I suppose probably every void delve is going to have a little bit of similar things. But what I found really cool about this one, um, there's a lot of optional routing, at least in this story, right? There's places where you could jump down. There's places where you could take these like little flight paths or teleports. There's different lefts and rights you can take. And there's a lot of optional routing, which, now in some ways, sometimes maybe that's not the best thing. But I think like the first time you do a delve, or like the first 5 times you do a delve, right? It's cool to have different routing because you might choose to take different routes and it keeps it a little bit fresh. I kind of like that. And sometimes it's false, right? Because sometimes you have different routes, but you're clearly always going to take this other route. This one, it wasn't quite as clear. Like, yes, there was probably a quickest route, but it was like, hey, this route actually looks cool too, or maybe this route has more of this or whatever, right? And so I really thought that was cool for this route, for this delve. Again, though, like no environmental damage that I could find. Now maybe I'm missing something, but I'm like, I'm going through slowly. I'm trying to see if there's anything interactable or anything like that. I couldn't find any like environmental damage. I also just think it's cool. Like they executed a void delve really well. This is basically supposed to be a void delve. Maybe it's the void delve. I don't know, but it's actually just really cool aesthetically. It's really cool. Everything. You have these big old monsters here as well, like Godzilla looking things. Like this delve is really cool. It was probably my favorite one, out of these three at least, right? And I bet it'll be one of my favorite ones overall. Again, like I said, no environmental damage I could find in my particular story. There wasn't any puzzle or anything either, but I still really enjoyed it. Again, this was probably my favorite one. And I'm glad, right? I'm glad that the very first two I tested out I like a lot. The last one we talked about was going to have a little bit of negative to it. And I thought about just running through the whole delve, but at the same time, it's not really going to learn anything if I'm on like tier 1 just running through it. But we'll move on to the final one and end with a summation here. We're gonna head to the Gulf of Memory. All right. Luckily, I could just talk to the guy outside, and he teleported me back, not back to Stormwind, but he did teleport me back here to the Delve area in Silvermoon. So let's head to the Gulf of Memory from here and talk about this one a little bit. So this is one I did while leveling up as well, and I had very similar opinion. I thought maybe it'd be different at max level, but I had a very similar opinion to what I had while leveling up, and it's not necessarily a good one. I think, unfortunately, this delve has like everything I don't like about delves. So let me be clear, I really liked the first two that we talked about. I'm not a hater at all. I love delves, but let's hopefully maybe we can make this one better together. Okay, so this is, first of all, I was hoping not to have this mechanic. This is one of the ones where you're in darkness and you need to do light, right? So in something like Kriegel's Rest in the War Within, you can pick up the candles and like throw them around and stuff like that. However, this one works more like the air one, where you had to get to the air purifiers. And what you need to do is you need to go light these candles by clicking on them, right? Which is fine. Let's just show how that works really quick. Well, maybe we can even do this without even pulling the mobs. So there's a candle. It lights up a pretty big area, right? And when you're not in it, though, you have this debuff and you take a bunch of extra damage. Basically, until you get max gear, you don't want to fight in this shadow stuff. And here's the problem with that. And sometimes, so these candles are really close together, right? Well, later on, the candles aren't so quite close together anymore. In fact, you can see here, there's a candle pretty far away, but there's not too many mobs between there. So it's not a big deal. But there are spots where there's a big gap between candles and a lot of mobs. Here's an even bigger problem. If you need to be playing with your buddy as a tank for whatever reason, because you just need to or because you want to, your buddy is going to sit and fight everything in the darkness while you go run into the candle, right? And it is really rough. It does not feel good. It's especially worse for melee, right? So if you're ranged, maybe having your buddy sitting here fighting while you sit back in the ranged. Oh, I guess we could just activate these as well. While you sit back here in the range isn't in the light isn't that big of a deal. But it is a big deal when you're melee. It feels really bad. This is like, it's like that mechanic from the War Within, but like the worst version of it, right? So I really hope that they either make these things bigger or they maybe can think of a different way to use light other than having to sit in this circle. It's just really, really rough, especially for any melee class. And you'll know what I mean when you do it. Again, I can just explain it to you. So imagine having a candle. These two are that far apart, but there's like 20 enemies in between them. and sometimes it's like even further than that. It's really rough. It's not great. So that's like the worst thing about this one. All right, so we talked about a not so great mechanic, but let's talk about a actual kind of cool mechanic, and that's these traps here. So these are kind of like how I wish the ley line things work. These are like Kiss Curse. If you stand in this trap, you'll get sucked up and take a bunch of damage, but you can also kite your enemies through it. So you just saw that enemy come down. Now watch, he's going to get smashed down here, I believe. There we go. And then he explodes, and a lot of these guys start taking damage. So you can see them bursting now. So this is a really, really cool thing about this dungeon, right? So it's not all bad by any means. You have the really annoying candle thing, but you also have these cool little traps and environmental damage. This is what I want to see more of. So while the candles were absolutely painstaking as a melee, you do have this really cool environmental damage that you can kind of do to do big pulls too, right? You saw everything get hit when it smashed down. You know, you can maybe do some big pulls into that vine, and that's really cool. I think that's something the Gulf of Memory has really good going for it. If it wasn't for the huge gaps between candles, especially like from this one over here, if you can see on the left, all the way over there to the one on the right, and then like there's elite mobs, and some of the gaps are even worse than that, if I'm being honest. It's rough for melee, right? Now if Bran is, or not Bran, but your Valera, if she is on DPS or healer, I guess, I don't know, and you just run through and most of the mobs follow you into the light, I don't know. But if you need to play with tank, that's really where it's going to be an issue, right? And so I hope that they look at that. But the vine thing is cool. That's what I want to see more of. That is really neat, right? I love the environmental damage. My son will love trying to kite the mobs over that, so that'll be really cool. Another thing that's just kind of annoying about this one is there's going to be, like, once you get like halfway through, there's also random webs on the floor. I guess I didn't try to kite mobs through the webs, but it's just like, it just seems a little unnecessary. We have booby traps, we have booby traps, we have these candles. Do we need webs too? I don't know. I feel like there's a lot going on in this one, and some of it's good, some of it's bad, some of it just might not be needed. Like, there's just a lot going on in this delve, I would say. So maybe it'll be one that some people, like, let's say you're a ranged player or something, or you're a tank, so you don't even need Valera to be tank. Like, you might enjoy this one a lot for certain reasons, right? I could see that. I could see this one being polarizing. But then someone like me is like, oh no, I hate this one. I hate the candles. I hate the way the candles work. I don't hate the idea of the candles. I just don't like the way they work. And so someone like me might really dislike it, and somebody else might have the complete opposite experience because they're playing like a complete opposite role or whatever in the game. I could see that being one of these, right? And that I'm biased because I'm melee. I could definitely see that. But I still, and as we've talked, I'm mostly positive about all this. Basically just the candle things, all I didn't like out of these 3 delves. So that's about where I'm at with that. Overall, I look forward to doing the other videos on all the other delves, giving feedback. I know delves are still new, and so the devs over at Blizzard are really interested in getting feedback on delves. So even if you don't have a YouTube channel or whatever, you can give your feedback on delves, whether on the beta through the report thing, or I guess that's probably not the best place, but probably on the forums and stuff like that, in the comments below even. You can talk about how you feel about delves, and the things you like, things you don't like. Even if you don't have the beta, you can say, based on what I've told you, maybe you like something that I don't like, maybe you don't like something that I do like. You can share that below, and just give your feedback, hopefully in a polite way, I would hope. But you can do that as well. And let's make delves really fun. I thought they were great in the War Within. I'm really positive for Midnight as well, and I hope we get more cool things like those vine traps to trap our enemies and do damage to them. And like I said, maybe I was missing something. Maybe the ley line thing is supposed to burn your enemies and it just wasn't for some reason. I played around with it a decent bit. I was like running in a circle with mobs behind me and seeing if they would get burnt by it, but maybe it wasn't working correctly. I don't know, right? But I'd love to see more of that stuff. Let's use the environment to help us, because it makes it cool. It's like, it feels like a delve to me. Like however a delve's supposed to feel, that is to me how it's supposed to feel. So that's it for this one. Like I said, we'll have more coming, probably 2 more videos of these, just giving initial feedback, hopefully before Tuesday when like all the new stuff comes out. So we'll try to get like 1 a day maybe, so Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I mean, it kind of works out if I'm able to do that. We'll try to get all these Dell feedback out, and of course, like I said, let everyone know your feedback as well. You don't have to have a YouTube channel for your feedback to matter by any means, so let everyone know your feedback as well. But as I said, that's it for this one. Again, I've warned you I was long-winded. But as always, I do ask you to please subscribe to the channel. That helps me out a lot. Subscribing is easy. I'm almost at 8K subs. Let's get over that. Let's get to 10. So subscribe to the channel. If you're already a subscriber and you want to check out the Patreon, you can do that. It's in the link below. And other than that, everybody, have a good one.